Welcome to the Fighting on Film podcast, the podcast all about classic and obscure war movies, from the Normandy landings to the days of chivalry and swords. If it's been captured on film, we're going to try and cover it. I'm Robbie of RM Military History.
I'm Matthew Moss of Historical Firearms and the Armourer's Bench. Hello and welcome back to Fighting on Film. This week we have a really interesting film. It's hard to describe. So I came across this while just doing some late night browsing for a film, and I was like,
that sounds dodgy.
this was not what I was after. Anyway, so I was doing some late night browsing, just looking for something relatively interesting to watch, and I came across World War 4 or WW4, and I thought, oh, okay, well, this looks fairly unusual and generic in equal measures, because it was just a generic image advertising it.
The thumbnail the person had made for the upload didn't do it justice, did it?
Yeah, and then the interesting part that intrigued me was the film that predicted the war in Ukraine was one of the comments underneath it, and I was intrigued from there on out. So of course I immediately forced Rob to watch this, and we've decided to do an episode on it. 2019 released as Edge of War or World War 4, depending on where you find it.
Yeah.
And Rob, do you want to take us through the in-depth production notes that you've amassed?
So I mean, this is the problem, like, this movie's so independent that there's almost nothing online out there about it. And we've had to sort of like scrape together bits and bobs. So it's directed by A.K. Strom. He's a New Zealand director, independent filmmaker, and he has a penchant for making like big scale independent movies using stock footage, assets, After Effects. That's his bag. And all of his movies that he's released thus far seem to have like an end of the world slant to them. So 2016,
definitely apocalyptic.
Yeah, that vibe, yeah. 2016's End of All Things, Ascendance in 2017, and then Falling Star that came out in 2021. They all have like a end of the world theme. He writes and directs his own movies. He edited this film as well. Oh, and then I think got a lot of
sound design
help. Sound design too, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it was produced by Pacific Pictures, which I assume is AK's own production company based in New Zealand. And this is when the majority of the non-stock footage, public domain footage scenes were filmed in New Zealand. Yeah. And you told me that the public domain footage is from a thing called DVIDs. Would you care to explain what that is for the listeners?
Yeah, so DVIDs is a US Department of Defense website. It's Defense Visual Information Distribution Service, DVIDs. And I knew about this from my day job as a defense journalist. A lot of news updates and press releases and imagery is uploaded daily. So it's a huge website which has imagery going back right to the beginning of the early 2000s. And there's tons of material being uploaded to it daily. So if you can imagine, there's an outpost in Alaska that's doing a video about an exercise that's ongoing, it gets uploaded to DVIDs.
Like a big, like YouTube, but for
it's like defense YouTube. All of it is public domain. It's uploaded by public affairs officers, and it's part of the US Department of Defense and the US military's PR machine, where they can put this material up, and then news agencies can pull from it and use it for reporting and illustrating articles and stuff like that. And there's other aspects to it as well, but it's essentially a huge library of imagery, and Strom has managed to construct an hour-and-a-half film.
Yeah,
made up in time. This is what blew my mind.
This is what's intriguing about it all.
Yeah. It's a fairly low-end indie movie that's crafted inside a huge amount of stock footage taken from public domain defense sources.
It's maybe like half an hour filmed scenes and then an hour of actual stock footage compiled together.
Before I go into cast, I think probably a good moment to explain what the plot of the film is, just very briefly. So you follow a US SOCOM lieutenant and his partner, essentially, Sue and what's his name? Caleb. Thank you. I'm looking at the notes and I just couldn't see it. Sue and Caleb, and Caleb gets deployed off to the Middle East, and Sue's at home seeing this impending nuclear war unfold live on TV news, which is very, topical and quite believable. And a series of events. There's raids in North Korea. There's North Korean raids into South Korea. There's unrest in the Black Sea and in the Baltic and Ukraine. In the Middle East, some oil fields get destroyed. Lots of other little bits and bobs going on. There's a stock photo of a terrorist that gets put on the screen numerous times in a news report.
MacGuffin terrorist character that irrelevant to the
Caleb
plot.
has to hold down. Like Caleb has to hunt him down, but you never see him.
No.
Which unsurprising given he was probably just some dude that was paid like $20 to be in a stock photo. And put on Shutterstock. But essentially, the US invades North Korea. The Ukraine plot sort of fizzles off and isn't mentioned again after a while.
You just hear it on the like a news, like a
broadcast, like update.
like a news broadcast. You just hear it in the background. Coverage. Yeah, you never hear of it again. Yeah.
And then a nuclear bomb explodes underneath the invasion fleet.
Yeah, more on that later.
And that's basically the film, and it's all about how we Korea into a nuclear war. But there's some. Rob will mention this a bit more in a moment, but there's some parts where there's an underhand individual orchestrating all of this, and
it's interesting. But that for me, that's the most interesting part of the film. But I'll get onto that in the favorite scene section. But it's very interesting. It's like the war game, but for now. But not
kind of trying
without anything that made the war game work. Like it's sort of it has all the elements there. It's just not presented in the same way.
If the war game had used public domain
footage
and footage film for training videos and stuff like that,
it wouldn't have been as good.
It probably wouldn't have been as good, to be honest. Yeah. But that would be like the instant parallel.
Yes. But this is the closest thing you can liken it to.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting concept.
Isn't it meant to be like riffing off of that World War III American TV film from the 80s? It might well be. I think that's what it's meant to be riffing off of. And I assumed it was called World War IV because the war's so big that it just eclipses a third one.
Maybe.
I don't know.
Maybe.
What about the cast?
It's an interesting one because obviously it's a very independent movie made in New Zealand. And Strom's gathered a cast of people that have done a lot of extra work, a lot of small parts in various series and indie films. Some people that have no acting experience. So, as I mentioned earlier, the two key protagonists in the film are Sue Jones and Lieutenant Caleb Jones. Sue Jones is played by Morgan Bradley, who's a New Zealand actress with some TV and indie credits. And most recently, I think one of the most prominent roles she's had is appearing in one of the History Channel's kind of drama documentary shows, The Food That Built America, where she played a woman that ran a food company.
All right, okay.
Yeah, I forget which one I did.
Probably Aliens, knowing the bloody History Channel.
Yeah, it was Aliens that are working out of storage facilities.
While
mostly.
People bid on them.
Yeah.
And then they go and pawn the food afterwards.
Yeah, they go and pawn the food, and then someone comes and picks it in American Pickers. Anyway.
Oh my
God. So my God, that's a hell of a tangent we just got on there.
It is,
Caleb Jones is played by Graham Vincent, who I think is actually probably the best actor in this. He's got some small supporting roles, background work in TV, a little bit of stunt work. He was in the Daniel Radcliffe film Guns Akimbo.
That's one where he's got the guns sellotape to his hands or something.
That's the one.
Yeah.
Haven't seen it, but I remember the trailer.
Yeah.
Odd. He was also in Spartacus, and there was quite a few people in this that have appeared in the series Spartacus from a few years back, which kind of makes the kind of like link that in my mind at the back of my head is like, I wonder if these are all just like friends that know each other that appeared on Spartacus years ago.
Could be, yeah.
And Strom was looking for like a cast, and someone said, "Oh well, I know him and I know her, and etc." Maybe
we've all been in Spartacus. Yeah, we've got the Spartacus gang together.
Yeah,
Spartacus WhatsApp call.
Rosemary Costa plays Nancy, who is the mother of Sue Jones, and her main role in this is Exposition, which we'll come to later on. And then we've got FBI Captain, played by Frederick Dodson, and this is his only credit. And he sits in an office and he calls Campbell Roussel, who is Agent Michael Fife.
Give me Fife, God damn it! When there's risk to life, you call Fife.
Call Fife. Interestingly, Roussel did some stunts in the Hobbit movie.
Wow.
He was in Alexander, and he was also in the Spartacus series. He had some small roles in those 90s Greek mythology shows, Hercules and Xena. And he was an orc in Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers. And then A.K. Strom himself makes an appearance as General Conlon, who begins the film with a little bit of exposition and narration. And he pops up a couple of other times.
It's like he's off screen in every other shot, and he's like the big boss.
He's in the command center.
Yeah. It works. Yeah.
And that command center is probably, his spare bedroom where he edited this film.
Probably a garage or somewhere.
Everything.
Yeah. Packed.
So all of those computers were probably just his editing suite.
Yeah.
Each one linked to a different public domain website.
Yes.
And then we've got Sean O'Connor, who is the man in the office with the red lamp. That's not how he's credited.
It's not
in the title, but you know who I mean.
More on him later. I have a theory.
And then Kevin Taylor plays Dave Bradley, who is US SOCOM, and he's the guy that phones Agent Michael Fife, I think, initially. Lots of small roles, also in Spartacus. And he was apparently in a New Zealand CGI Cold War series called The War at Home, which is set in 1989.
That sounds spicy.
And it's Cold War Goes Hot. But I can't find it online anywhere.
What?
I can't find any mention of it. The only thing I can find is it was a brief mention of it on IMDb. So rounding out the cast is the Strom family itself. We've got Hope.
The Stromhold.
We've got Hope, Jackie, Jacqueline Joy, Kirsten, Ruben, Bethany, and Holly all make appearances in the film.
Tonight on an all-new Stromhold, Jackie. That sounds like a 70s sitcom.
It really does, doesn't it?
The guy's doing what you do as an independent filmmaker. You call in all you can. Like, fair play.
And that pretty much rounds out cast, except for the thousands and thousands of soldiers, seamen, airmen, and marines that appear in all the public domain footage. Don't even know.
Yeah. God bless those countless millions or thousands.
Have no idea that they're in a WW4 movie.
Yep. Doing some of the best war movie acting ever because it's their job.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
And that's kind of part of the beauty of this, actually, because it all looks pretty authentic.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll talk about that in a moment when we get to...
Yeah, we will, because there's actually a charm to this movie in certain points that actually does really work. So the fourth hypothetical is back, and as it's December, we thought we'd get all Christmassy here at FOF HQ. And our executive producer, Katie, she came up with this question for us, and it was, what Christmas film would you mash up with a war film, and why? And the FOF, her listener faithful, were, are stocking a fillip over with mashups, if you will. So Kahar says, Gremlins and Dark of the Sun, mercenaries on an underground train need to get to a bank vault and recover diamonds from a town of rampaging gremlins. I'd watch it.
Yeah, I mean, that's dark, but yeah.
It's dark, but I'd watch it. A shot-for-shot remake of Dark of the Sun, yeah, please.
Mm-hmm. The scene in the bar would be insane.
It would be crazy.
And as long as Kenneth Moore gets a cool death, that's the only scene I want reshot.
Yeah.
Where he cuts down at least 10 gremlins before they get him.
And then we have Paul Hicks, and if you know Paul's contributions to the FOF hypotheticals, Muppets are involved quite heavily, and this one is no different. So he says Muppets Christmas Carol, Felix Noel, I think it's like 2007 film.
Yeah.
Those classic Muppets Christmas Carol songs sung by Muppets and humans while they walk across no man's land brings a tear to the eye. Also, watching the Penguins play football, I'd go for it.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah, Miss Piggy, we're gonna do a Christmas truce. Yeah. Everyone can not shoot their guns today.
He's doing Kermit the Frog, everybody. He's doing Kermit the Frog. Good job, Rob. The effort in your face doing that, the effort that is going into this, it's incredible.
3 years of theatre and university, that's all I've got in my locker. Good God. Right. David Bowen says, where Die Hard's there, Bruce Willis strips down to his vest in the snowy Alps to infiltrate a Nazi castle through the ventilation ducts and guns down half the German army while they're spencing witty quips. Now I have an MP40. Ho, ho, ho.
Schloss Adler has probably the nicest air vents.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like beautiful. Stone lined rather than metal.
It'd be good.
Yeah.
I can see that.
Come on to the Alps, have some laughs.
Yeah. And then we have Andy Moody, who says Holiday Inn in Castle Keep. Crosby, Astaire, and Reynolds are a USO party stranded in a castle under attack during the Battle of the Bulge, defended by a ragtag band led by an enigmatic Burt Lancaster. Action and songs ensue. I can see that. Could have like a big Fred Astaire tap sequence, like while he's having grenades thrown at him. That'd be quite fun.
Yeah, like Fred Astaire's, and doing a little number in the background while Burt Lancaster's on the 30 caliber on the roof.
Any minute, Fred, you could give me a hand. He just like kicks over like an ammo box to him or something. John Armstrong said the Wild Geese is mostly set on Christmas Day. Would that do? Yes.
Yeah.
And then I think I put underneath that like Emil's Revenge or something, because he doesn't get to open his presents, does he? Adam Brown said it's a wonderful life / the Eternal Zero. Stewart's US Navy pilot brother is decorated war hero who earned his Medal of Honor fighting kamikazes.
Okay.
Well, I haven't got your fighter plane. It's in that aircraft carrier. It's in your house. Kamikazes, everybody. No, I could just see it. Running down like an aircraft carrier instead of like the snow high street. That'd be brilliant. Pete the Paint, Polar Express and Von Ryan's Express mashup could prove entertaining, just to see how Tom Hanks and Frank Sinatra would get on. That'd be great.
Oh my God, that'd be amazing.
Would you do it? Would you redo it stop motion though? That weird like mocap they did. Would you do that?
Can you imagine? Spoilers: Sinatra getting cut down in mocap. Though that'd be so weird.
That'd be so funny in that weird sort of uncanny valley mocap they had.
Yeah.
And then Mosquito 1940 goes with Mary Poppins and Went the Day Well, and then he put, oh, hang on, that's Beg Knobs and Broomsticks, which is fantastic piece of writing there. And then Kevin Getz goes with An Elf Too Far because I want to see Buddy yell, bring up the Piat. That's Boy Browning. I know him.
What about you? Have you got any?
Yeah, I was thinking about it. I've got Home Alone meets Downfall, where you have, so it's that sort of alternate reality, but you have like Hitler trying to stop 2 Red Army officers trying to get into his bunker.
What if you had
fleeing? Go on, sorry.
What if you had Home Alone mashed up with Valkyrie, and it's Kevin McAllister trying to stop Tom Cruise?
But in my one though, you had like all the, they were trying to get through the rat lines, and one of them realizes they've left Hitler in the bunker. And you've got like some really fanatical officer trying to get back to help him. If we don't do it, Dangerfly will. What about you, Matt? Did you have a festive war movie mashup?
Ooh, it's tricky. I was originally thinking Muppets 2.
What's with this show and the Muppets?
I don't know.
No one's done a puppet war film, have they?
No, they haven't. Actually.
Maybe we'll bankrupt the pod one day by trying to get it off the ground.
Yeah. I was thinking Muppets 2, but No, I think I'm going to stick with Home Alone meets Valkyrie.
That is good. That's good. Thanks again for all of your contributions to the Far Hypothetical, and look out for it. There might be another one before Christmas. You never know. So, on to the alley tally, I think.
It's time for Alley Tally on Fighting on Film.
It's a tricky one because it's all public domain. So is it really? Does it fit? Does it? I think it does.
For me, it's like
because there's some cool stuff in this.
Technically not in the film, but then it is. So I'm torn. But I'm not going to be on this big. Because it's stock footage. Because we weren't allowed years ago when I did a film A level. We weren't allowed to use stock footage because because you physically weren't putting it in your film. It was like it's not representative of your budget. Even if you're doing like, I don't know, I think one kid wanted to do like a football hooligan thing, and he wanted to have like a CCTV, like aerial footage of lads running up and down like a road, and it was like, but you physically haven't got that, so you can't show it. It was like they changed the marking criteria, but it's always a weird one. Public footage, splicing in footage, because it was done in the the 40s and 50s and 60s all the time. It's just falling out of favor because
absolutely, one that famously did do it was Wayne Talkers, and they spliced a little bit in, didn't they?
He did, the Destroyers.
They colorized it,
And Memphis Belle does it really well with the bombing sequences.
I like that though. I like when films splice in a little bit of contemporary footage. I know it's a bit more difficult now with super crisp HD and putting in some original either black or white or color footage. It just doesn't gel as well, but especially in the black and white era, those film stock differences didn't matter too much and it looked good. In this, there's certain bits where you can date when it was filmed or edited, A, by uniform, and B, in the editing style. So there's a very Michael Bay-esque opening bit where there's a riverine patrol in Korea, and it's very Michael Bay, slow motion explosions,
and like a quick edit and like a bloom filter. It's all going off.
I'll talk a bit more about that later on.
Going crazy.
Absolutely. And that's got to go in the alley tally. The miniguns. That was it. That was pretty cool.
But pretty much the thing is, if you can think of a piece of modern kit that would be used in a contemporary war,
AK got it in there, basically.
Amtraks, jets, tanks. But for me, it's less about what's in the clip. It's more about how it's been edited and been adapted for this movie, because that's the impressive part of this.
Yes.
And just the doing just enough in your bridging scenes with kit. So the guys Caleb's team, like I think they're not. They never say who they are. Like the Special Forces team.
Yeah, I think they're Special Forces,
like SOCOM or something. His guys got digital camo. They got plate vests. Everything's pretty uniform. It's basic stuff. It's not like high level of kit detail, but it's enough, and they do look uniform enough. That's one thing I think me and you were mentioning when we were watching it. We have a WhatsApp, we text away, and we were saying actually there are bigger budget independent movies that attempted to do way less, that have shitter kit. Have more budget and shouldn't have an excuse. But Strom's got 4 guys who look pretty uniform, and even they've got this weird air rifle thing. We can't work out what it is.
Yes,
I think it's like an M14 or an ERB, like toy mock-up or something, and some sprayed grey, perhaps.
It's unusual. I don't know what it is. I mean, if you know, let us know. But
but they've all got it. So there's some uniform there. There's some thought in it. Like it just gives it that extra little something, and you're not sitting there going, "Well, why have they all got like some weird guns, or why have they not all got the same fatigues?" It doesn't pull you out as much as it could.
No. And because there's so many different types of footage being used in one sequence, which is kind of jarring. It can be. One hand, and then on the other, it kind of removes the oh, they're wearing different uniforms to what the guys in the public domain footage are using.
Yeah.
Because they're in like janky digital camo.
Which I just hate digital camo anyway. But that's not this
and
movie's fault.
Jones is absolutely plastered in name tapes and patches. So I think he is actually, he has a giant US SOCOM patch, I think, in one scene. And he has them on both arms.
Which just reminded me of the PlayStation 2 games. I couldn't help it. My brain was like, "Ooh, nostalgia!" It just went off.
Yeah, like one of the cutscenes.
yeah, it was a bit. Yeah. If they spliced that into this, I wouldn't have known.
No.
But then talking about how that edits in really well is that whole night attack scene that blends really well. Like you've got the green night vision camera. They put that on their own bit, and there's guys. I think they're probably in someone's backyard or someone's.
Yeah,
a bit of
the
fret
park
land
or something. Yeah,
film. Yeah. And it's edited in with night attack footage of guys with machine guns, fixed SF machine guns going off.
Yeah.
Guys coming out of helicopters, and for a sort of like this lovely sort of like 10-15 minute section.
If you put a little bit of like noise over that green filter that he uses, it would have been even better.
Yeah, it would have. Yeah, like if electrical hum underneath it all.
Yeah, and some like white speckles.
Just a little bit
in the
more
filter. Yeah,
After Effects. You probably wouldn't have, because there are some shots, I must admit, where it's hard to determine. It's the guns that give it away. Once you know what they're armed with, it does give it away. But that's really good editing, and that's nice. But then that scene is ruined for me because there's two goals, like white football or netball goals.
Goalposts,
that are in the shot in that sequence. And then later, Fife is there when he goes to confront the big
Agent Michael Fife.
Agent Michael Fife.
Has to be done.
Yeah, it has to be done. 5 and 5. When there's risk to life, you call Fife. So when he's there, it's the same goalpost. And I'm like, oh, you just shot the same place. Like, just move the camera an inch to the left, and I'd never would have guessed. But it's just, I know it's just a small thing, and I might be the only person ever to pick that up. But whatever.
Probably. Out of the 10 million people that have watched it, you're probably the first to pick that up. Yeah.
God, yeah. I'll have to go on the IMDb and be like, put my first.
Would you put that in trivia, or would you put in goofs?
I probably put it in goofs. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Continuity error.
Oh my God, that's a rabbit hole you don't want to go down.
Agent Fife is at the same goalpost that the Special Forces team are in the night attack.
A lot of the men in the public domain clips have got blank firing adapters on their guns.
Yeah.
Rounding out the alley tally, I think one of the coolest things to see that's included in this film is during that night sequence, and a little bit later on as well, there's a Lockheed AC-130 gunship, which is the spiritual successor to the Spookies from Vietnam. And you get some great footage that had been filmed on the interior of this AC-130. And you see it in the air, and AK has picked some lovely,
really has
brilliant
everything's
footage.
Thought out, and it is everything does have a thought behind it. It's not just I've just cut loads of random clips together.
Yeah, like
it
gun
does
runs by
enough.
Apaches and the AC-130. There's a really cool little section where there's assault amphibious vehicles, US Marine Corps AAVs, going ashore, which is a great little sequence showing those going off the ramps.
The
and
invasion.
stuff.
Cool.
The invasion of North Korea, Rob, that we haven't mentioned yet.
Sorry. That big plot point.
The huge plot point. Exposition time. Gets explained by a phone call between Sue's mum and Sue, because Sue's brother is a Marine and he's on one of those AAVs. And he has a feeling, Robbie's got a feeling that he's not going to come back this time.
Feel it in his waters. Yeah.
And he never says that ever.
No.
Quoting Nancy directly there.
It would be weird if he was just shouting it on the Amtrak, like scaring the shit out of his comrades. I don't feel good about this. Like, shut that guy up.
Can you not, pal?
Stow that shit, Michael.
And I think that takes us into favourite scenes. Hello there, sorry to interrupt. I wanted to let you know that you can now join our supporting cast over on Patreon. As thanks for your support, you'll be able to help us pick films, submit questions for guests, have first pick on brand new and exclusive merch, and much more. Thank you for your support. Now back to the show.
So for me, through the whole movie, there's this man in red, and he's on computers, and he's got loads of like monitors and stuff. You know, he looks like a
Ruined
hacker.
it a bit for me, I'll be honest.
Really? Like
just a bit.
Okay,
yeah.
I get it. Right.
I was
Okay.
like, oh, it's all being orchestrated by
It's
one
like
guy.
orchestrated. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And they
the
surmise this at the
conspiracy of it
start.
all.
And that's Fife's. This is like Fife's
Agent
plot.
Michael.
Is it Michael? You know, well, there's risk to life. You call Fife. So he's doing his thing, and there's this guy in red, and he's like smiling at his monitors, and he's like whooping and hollering when he blows up an invasion fleet. Because yes,
Yeah.
an
With a
invasion
nuclear
fleet gets
weapon. Yeah.
wiped out. Yeah, and you have like a weird sort of. There's something coming up from the water. It's like that's not how a nuclear bomb would go off. It would just go off. You
You know what? This is just reminding me the parallels of this with Tomorrow Never Dies are insane.
Oh my god! Yeah,
That's set in the South China Sea as well,
it is. Yeah.
where Elliot Carver is trying to get the Chinese and the British to start a war.
Oh.
But chap in the room with the red lamp has succeeded where Elliot Carver failed.
Yeah, yeah. He's the greatest Bond villain we never had, Matt.
Yeah.
So you think he's going to be like some sort of, I don't know, like hacker or like mad political nut or something. But then Fife locates to where he thinks he's going to be, and it's like this sort of like, I don't know, factory or something.
Yeah, Agent Michael Fife has been on the hunt since Dave from SOCOM, US SOCOM, US Special Operations Command, phoned him and said there's a weird data spike every time there's one of these attacks. So Agent Michael Fife goes and investigates.
TM, Agent Michael Fife, TM.
At the nearest like area where, and it happens to be outside Washington, which is really helpful because that's where Agent Michael Fife is.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Agent Michael Fife goes.
Got him out of his fuel expense, the fuckers.
Goes and investigates. And we get this great scene. Not my favorite scene, but it's a great scene where FBI
I haven't
captain.
even got onto my theorizing yet. Jesus.
Sorry.
It's fine. It's fine.
FBI captain phones Agent Michael Fife and says, God damn it, Fife, where are you? And he says, I'm following up a lead.
It goes all CSI, doesn't it?
It does. It's very CSI.
CSI Fife.
I've forgotten my point. Agent Michael Fife is out there hunting the guy down, and he finally gets to the building where he thinks he's going to be, doesn't he?
That's it. Yeah.
He opens up the back of his
Hyundai people.
Hyundai like estate.
Fife is a great guy. He's head of the FBI carpool. That's what he's got. The carrier.
He gets a little FBI vest out, puts it on, and then he goes and into this building, which looks like it looks like a telephone exchange. It's weird.
Something like that, yeah. That's probably what I was thinking.
He holds his Glock pistol in a really weird way for the first few shots, and then he's inside the building clearing rooms, and he opens the room, doesn't he?
It's the Fife method.
It's the Fife method. Yeah, it's not a C clamp, it's a Fife clamp.
Fife clamp.
But the way he's holding it is like that would induce a malfunction. I'm gonna have to say it, Agent Michael Fife.
Yeah.
Don't do that. Anyway, so he clears the building and then he opens the room, and it's a great cut. Like AK's nailed it with this bit where you think, oh, it's gonna be a reveal. He's gonna
get the big bad.
Find the man with the red light. And it isn't.
No. So it's not, and there's like this duvet cover that's been like scrawled painted in red. And it says, the 20th century, you lost your faith. And in the 21st century, you'll lose your civilization. And he looks at the camera and then...
Little webcam from 2002.
Yeah. The highest quality webcam's going.
Better than mine.
Yeah. Well, and then it cuts back to the man in red, and he's happy. And the nuclear war starts. And that's the end of the movie.
He's just there laughing. Yeah.
And he's there laughing, and I surmised that he was the devil. And Matt didn't think that.
Blew my mind. blew my mind.
but
Hadn't even occurred to me.
But my sort of like A-level film theory brain was like, right, he's in red. That denotes danger.
Yeah.
The losing your faith thing, I was like, end of the world apocalypse. That's got quite religious connotations it can have. And I was like, well, he's the devil, isn't he? That's his ultimate.
He's the devil. Yeah.
That's his ultimate middle finger. F you to the world. I will smite thee with nukes. Your own
If they'd
creation.
had the budget, Rob, they would have played "Sympathy for the Devil" by the Stones over that scene.
That would have been amazing. He would have pressed play on that on his own Spotify. Satan-fi, he'd have pressed play. But no, I thought he was the devil. I thought that was the whole undercurrent of this. That somehow it's a religious movie.
It didn't occur to me, and I can totally see the theory. And I'd love to know if it was, but I can totally get on board with the idea that he is the devil.
I just wish there'd have been more, maybe like lean to that a bit more, because he's just in a checkered shirt and jeans, and he just looks like the most regular Joe guy going.
He does some pretty awkward like celebrating. When,
he like claps his
when
hands
the nuke goes off.
Hoots and hollers when he's like murdered like 500 people. Just like more.
Like 500,000 people.
I don't know how many people are on an aircraft carrier. I don't know.
Well, I mean that sequence
one
actually.
To pilot, one to maintain the planes. I'm joking.
That whole sequence where there's a detonation of an underwater nuke underneath the invasion fleet. Sorry, the second invasion fleet, because they invade. And then there's another invasion fleet on the east coast of Korea. Two-pronged. And this is being live broadcast on the news, and Nancy, the mum, is there, and Sue's watching it on TV. And then the TV cuts out when there's an explosion. But just before that, there's a little bit of a voiceover where someone says, there's something coming out of the water. And then it's just like, and then it cuts to loads of footage of SyncX, the exercises where navies and air forces fire ordnance and sink old ships.
Oh, cool.
So these SyncXs often get filmed, and they're all mostly on DVids. And there's like 3 that are cut into this to show the ships sinking in the fleet, and that is so clever. I thought,
it's good.
That is clever. That's clever.
Yeah. It's where the editing sort of like makes it all work again.
That's the impressive
thing
clever.
about this. Yeah. So your favorite scene? We've done it.
My favorite scene, I think, is we mentioned a little bit where Caleb is doing his assault to capture the terrorist.
Muffin terrorist.
Yeah, and every time the terrorist is mentioned on the news reports, there's this awful stock image of a terrorist that comes up on the screen, and it's the worst stock image photo.
He's got like a flecked on, surplus parka and a shamag. And I'm like, oh god.
And he's holding an airsoft Glock.
Yeah. He walked out of America on a pipe dream and having spent about $100. I was like, oh, I'm good to go.
So yeah,
there, boys. That's a plug for your lads if you're listening.
So Caleb's team have a hell of a time getting to this terrorist stronghold.
Yeah.
As soon as they get on the ground, they get return fire as they're approaching.
And this is
and he calls in multiple gun runs by an Apache helicopter, doesn't he?
Yeah, Mr. MacGuffin, the terrorist, is one of the most. He must have a private army, because the US have had to take out his ordnance, his artillery and his tanks. And I was like, Jesus, this guy's tooled up. What's that?
I know.
He's got all those VMPs the Russians left in the 80s.
They finally get into the tree line, and then he goes over the radio. Radio silence, they can't know we're coming. After the almighty firefight and gun runs by Apache helicopters and the fucking AC-130.
The echo of that down the tunnels would have just been awful.
Oh god, yeah, and they get into the tunnels, and there's a good 10-15 minutes of them searching the tunnels. And I'm gonna blow your mind a little bit, Rob. I mean, I've discovered where that was filmed.
The iPhone, like holding the iPhone like it's a heartbeat monitor in Call of Duty. Like, that was a bit weird. Sorry, no, it's military part. I should say personal electronic device. Just saying that.
Yes,
PED.
personal electronic device, PED. Yeah,
Always PED with him. Yeah.
He was allowed to. So in the tunnel sequences, that was filmed at North Head, which is a breech-loading 8-inch Armstrong disappearing gun battery in New Zealand. And I managed to identify this because you never see the gun, obviously, because that would make sense at all. But there's a little sequence where they come out of one of the tunnels and then they circle around the bottom of something, which is like a circle.
It's like a casemate, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a casemate. Yeah. And I thought, that's a casemate. And I thought, well, I know what I'll do. I'll Google New Zealand coastal defences, because we go all in on this pod, Rob. We go all in.
We do, mate. We do. We try to anyway. When it's hard to with this movie because there was fuck all online, but like, you know, we've done
absolutely nothing written about this film.
You know,
this is probably the most in-depth breakdown of A.K. Strom's World War IV that ever will be.
If you're listening, Strom, we love you.
Yeah. So it was filmed at North Head, and you can just see the base of the disappearing gun. And disappearing guns are basically a little bit of a history lesson now for coastal defences. But Armstrong guns or any disappearing gun, basically it pops up out of the casemate and then it pops back down. So it's undercover for them to reload. Clever.
Nice.
Yeah.
History Corner with Matthew Moss.
So that's my favourite scene because of those little details, the interesting place it was filmed, and the fact that he was asking for radio silence well after their cover had been blown.
It's very funny. But I like that bit though, because at least it's in a tunnel system. You know, they haven't tried to mock it up or anything. You know, it's genuinely there.
My other favourite scenes are where the mum's on the phone with them, and it's like, your brother's just phoned to tell me he's part of the invasion force.
That's a bit's laughable, but like.
And then she goes, the amphibious guys are going in first. Like, okay,
really?
Obviously.
But she's a civilian, so I can sort of get that dodgy sort of like connection. I can sort of get it. Yeah.
But also why, I mean, I don't think OPSEC, Operation Security, would allow the son to just call his mum and go, I don't think I'm going to come back, but the amphibious guys are going in first. We're going to invade just north of Pyongyang. And I'll let you know if I get wounded. And then 20 minutes later, she gets the quickest notification that he's wounded.
Yeah.
He was outside of Pyongyang in an AAV when it was hit by rocket-propelled grenades. And he's been wounded. He's going to be evacuated to one of the task force ships. And Sue's there like, wow, you have an awful lot of information, Mum.
Maybe this is just how the USMC WhatsApp works. It's just like,
maybe. Yeah.
Bish bash bosh, your son's going to be fine on an aircraft carrier. Spoiler alert, he's not going to be fine. Yeah.
At which point, this is all kicking off. So Sue gets on the old sat phone, gives Caleb a ring. Michael, or whatever his name is he's been wounded. He's on the aircraft carrier. And Caleb goes, well, it's probably the best place for him.
I wanted a scene where he's like got a cast on a bed and like he goes, everything's going to be fine, Michael. Don't worry. You're in the best hands. And like, the nurse walks out. Then he's like, trying to like sip his like, margarita or whatever, like, and he looks out of the porthole and he just sees like a shockwave of a nuke go off. And he just looks at the camera and holds up like a sign like Wild Coyote. He's like, whap, whap.
AK didn't have the budget for all that, Rob. Come on.
It's
just a clever bit of editing where it shows him in a bed and then it's, the nuke goes off.
That would have been fucking funny. I want Looney Tunes level
$5,000 worth of fucking filming you're suggesting right there. Like.
I want Looney Tune level cutaways of my war movies. Because sometimes they could just be fun. You could just have a bit of fun.
Oh yeah, fun World War IV movie.
It's an alternative. It's an alternative history movie. You do what you want.
That's true. That is true. Well, yeah, that's my favorite part of the film.
Yeah. Final thoughts.
Takes us into some final thoughts.
To final thoughts this week. I didn't hate this one. Like I know, because sometimes
it's hard to hate it when it's so ambitious.
We've had a laugh on it, Like, but really, you can't knock Strom for trying to make, well, getting nearly an hour and a half out of this from purely stock footage is incredible. The editing in the battle sequences is quite well done. You know, it's a masterclass if you want to use stock footage to get a big scene. Watch this, you know, it does a good job. And just, you know, the resources that Strom had and what he's done. You know, admittedly, it's not the best movie you'll ever see. Some of the dialogue is quite ham-fisted. I mean, quite a lot of it is actually, but
it's just exposition heavy.
Yeah,
it's just really heavy on exposition.
But if you want to sort of like see what one end of the war movie genre, budget-wise, is doing, as opposed to like, you know, you Bull Cry on the Western Fronts or your Dunkirks or whatever, like it's a good, you know, you can't always watch Hollywood A-tier movies. You can't do it. You have to sort of respect every level of filmmaking just to get an overall well-rounded view of the genre, I think. And this is one of the movies, it falls into that category.
Yeah. I agree. I think some
and it gave
very
me
clunky.
Agent Michael Fife trademarks. I'm happy.
Agent Michael Fife.
Get me
but
Fife.
It works in a number of ways. It's an interesting evolution of that concept of using contemporary footage, but also then using service personnel. It's got kind of links back to like Theirs Is the Glory. Obviously, they don't know they're in a film when this public domain footage was filmed.
Yeah, they don't know they're in a film. Yeah.
As I said, the exposition's a little bit clunky, but it's the concept that made this film interesting for me. Not the plot of the film. The WW4 aspect is okay, but the concept of making a film like this using public domain imagery with interspersed little sequences to give exposition and context. When it's done right, and there's parts of this film that do it really well, and there's other parts of it that just don't work well. It's actually quite a interesting and cost-effective way of making a film.
Yeah.
Because let's take that river sequence I mentioned earlier that's supposed to be set in Korea on a river. It's a North Korean raid into South Korea, I believe it is. That is from a 2012 US Navy recruitment video. So I went to DVids and did my little bit of sleuthing.
Matt went
most weeks I'm on DVids, Rob.
When he said he went all in earlier, he fucking went all in.
Like most weeks I will spend about an hour at least on DVids looking for stuff.
I did my notes on an iPhone while I was feeding my 2-year-old his lunch. I didn't go that far.
So, as I said, 2012 recruitment video, and it's got that big budget feel to it, lots of slow-mo. And when you watch that video, and it's of US Navy special warfare boats, and it explains the role of US Navy's special warfare combatant craft, crewman. That's the name of the role.
Right.
And the idea of the recruitment ad is like it's the most exciting role that you haven't heard of. Basically, it's the dude running the minigun and steering the boats.
Yeah.
So they have a great job, you know. Big budget, really well shot, really well edited. And then what AK Strom has done, he's taken that and he's put in some voice clips over it, you know, for the radio and stuff. He's spliced it around a little bit to create more of a narrative that he wants of an ambush. And that was one of the bits that I watched it because it's in the first like 10 minutes.
Yeah, it's like really early on.
Am I gonna give up on this? The way he managed to use this piece of footage was quite impressive. So I thought, I'll give it a watch. And the exposition parts and the little montages with the cast added a little bit of humor.
Yeah, it you know, inadvertently were funny sometimes. Yeah, you know,
but it works.
It's a few beers as a snack. You know,
yes,
I could think of worse ways to waste an hour and a half. To be fair, you know.
Yeah, I agree. And one thing that did bother me a little bit, in the credits, it would have been really nice if he credited the individual public affairs personnel, photographers, videographers, and
Matt has got his defense journalist hat on here, I must admit.
So at the end of the film, what Strom has done is he lists all of the various departments that he's taken. The footage from.
I scanned that bit.
Yeah. So U.S. Department of Defense, NASA, Earth Sciences and Remote Sensing Unit, NASA's Johnson Space Center, NASA's Scientific Visualization Studio, JPL, Caltech, the Goddard Space Flight Center, the NATO channel, the Pentagon channel, which I think are probably their YouTube channels, US Army Corps of Engineers, US Navy, Coast Guard, Air Force, National Guard, and US Army. But he doesn't credit individuals. And I think he could have put a little.
He'd have been there for fucking years. The amount
he
of
would
stuff
have. But how hard is it, Rob? Every time you like put a piece of footage and you just go, "Oh, I'll make a note of that."
Oh
name
yeah,
and I'll
you
put it in
could.
the credits.
Yeah.
You know,
but this is because we do what we do with video and stuff. We're always trying to credit as much as we can. So I guess he's done. At least he's done something.
Yes.
You know?
At least
he could literally put
sources.
all of this footage was found on this website because no one's going to check, are they? But fair play that he did something. Yeah, I think that's it for World War IV. What do you think?
I think it is, and I would not recommend going out right now and seeking it out and watching it. But 10 million views on YouTube, where it was apparently illegally uploaded, you can't argue with it.
Can't argue with that. I hope Strom has copy claimed that and is getting ad revenue off that.
Maybe
if you're not
is.
Strom, please fucking do, because you're missing a cash cow there, my friend.
Someone's making money off it.
Yeah, someone is somewhere. Yeah.
But it is on Amazon, and it has a 2.5 out of 5 rating on Amazon with a 51% 1-star rating. We don't do ratings on this show, but I just thought I'd mention that. A lot of those reviews on there are people that don't get what he's going for, I think.
Yeah. They're too,
For all the criticisms we have of it, it has its place within the war film genre because it's so different in its approach to making the film. But obviously the passion was there to make it. So you gotta give it that, and
without
it's
doubt.
an interesting movie.
It is interesting. It has, as I said, it has its place. And you have to, it's like people that love B movies. They don't just love B movies. They watch other movies as well. But it gives you a better appreciation of cinema overall to watch every
I think so.
sort of budgeted movie you can. Moving on from World War IV. Next week, don your HSAT helmets and your Sten bandoliers and denizens, because we are taking a trip to Pegasus Bridge with Lance Nielsen, who has imminently, after this episode goes live, will be publishing his unproduced screenplay for Pegasus Bridge, the film that was going to be filmed in 2017. And he's coming on the show to talk about that film and what happened and the plot and everything else. So please stick with us for that. And then the week after, folks, it is the big one. Now, if you are still listening, and you're not a patron, you might already know, but we have secured Jeff Dyer, who wrote a book called Broadsword Calling Danny Boy a few years ago. And if you're any type of fan of war movies, you'll know that quote is from 1968's Where Eagles Dare. Yes, we are finally doing Where Eagles Dare as our Christmas special on the 21st of December. Yeah, and then an extra fast bit of news. We'll be taking a 3-week hiatus over Christmas for get a bit of rest and relaxation back on the 11th of January for an as of yet undecided movie. I mean, that is Christmas in a nutshell for Final Film. I think that's it for this week, Matt.
I think so. We've got some absolutely great stuff coming up, and I can't wait to chat with Lance and Jeff. They're both going to be really great episodes. Lance is so passionate, and Jeff is the perfect guest for exactly Where Eagles Dare.
So, as always, you can find us on all the social media platforms apart from OnlyFans, and mainly at fightingonfilm.com, where you can find the entire back catalogue of the film. Who knows, over Christmas, when we're having our little R&R, you might have a FOF binge, and do let us know if you do.
Perfect time to do it. Perfect
time to do it. Speak to you soon. Speak to you soon.
Love you, bye.
Love you, bye. I'll leave that in. See you later, everybody. Bye.